God's a love that's divine, yours and it's mine like the sun.
Well, the title of my talk today is Embracing the Unexpected Teachers. And I found this story in the Week magazine. It's actually a true story, like all the stories I tell you. And well, except the ones that aren't true. But I thought this one was kind of fun. A great way, you'll see in the story, that this man is able to meet with a teacher. The article said, a Russian man spent a month starving in a forest after fighting with his wife about a bowl of soup. Yuri, 69, stormed out of his home in a remote region after his wife served him soup that he thought was too cold. Yuri became lost in the woods and survived for a month on berries and leaves until he was finally found suffering and malnourished and frostbite. And he said after that, no matter what happens, that's the last time I'll ever criticize my wife's cooking. This book is the book that we're starting this week in our small groups. The Power of Forgiveness, Forgiving as a Path to Freedom by Reverend Joan Gattuso, who lives on Molokai, by the way, yes. And it's really a profound book with really great stories. And in doing my homework and preparing for tomorrow night's group study, I read the first chapter, and just something that she said in that chapter sparked me to want to write this lesson that I'm going to share with you today. Her book is a great book on forgiveness. I hope that you'll read it. So today we're talking about embracing our unexpected teachers. You have any? Yeah. You know, when I first discovered unity and truth back in 1991, I started going to the Unity Church. You've heard me talk about it in California many times. And I thought it was so great, and I love the teachings. I love the things that Charles Fillmore, our co-founder, and Myrtle Fillmore, our co-founder, said. And I love the work of Wayne Dyer. I even met Wayne Dyer back in the day. And I love the teachings of the Buddha and Thich Nhat Hanh and so many other teachers that have been there through their writing for me. And I've found that I just loved them and loved their teachings. And in some way, the teachings were relatively easy for me to embrace. You know, things like, what you think about manifest for you. Wow, that was so cool when I heard that the first time. Or when I heard that the presence of God is in everything. It was like, wow, that's fabulous. What great teachings. What great teachers. I'm inspired. Yeah? You? Yeah, and it's like, wow, this is great. And then somewhere along the line, some other teachers showed up for me. Some other teachers that I found brought me a message that wasn't quite so fun. Yeah? Some of these teachers embarrassed me. Some of them really got me angry. Some of them were cruel to me. And some of them really hurt me. And these teachers, I don't have such a good taste for. Yeah? So the truth is we have many kinds of teachers in our lives, and it's easy for me to embrace the teachers that I feel are compassionate towards me. But the ones who aren't compassionate, I have a lot more trouble dealing with. And so, in fact, sometimes I feel like when one of these teachers comes to me, the difficult ones, the unexpected ones, I feel like this. Ever felt that way before? It's like, what is this? How can this be true? Who are you showing up in my life? Well, I believe that it is these unexpected teachers that offer us the biggest possibility and the biggest teaching and the most potential for discovering the truth of who we are. My stepfather, Howard, was one of the biggest teachers in my life. Howard came into my life when I was 16 years old. My dad had died a few years earlier, and my mother years before that. And so Howard married my stepmom. And the first thing that Howard did was to move us from Southern California, from Long Beach, to Pacifica, California, near San Francisco. And I have to tell you, I was a Southern California guy. You know, I lived close to the beach. We went to the beach all the time. Up in near San Francisco, you don't go to the beach. Yeah? And Howard brought this way of being my stepfather, being my dad, in a way that I had never experienced before. Howard was tough. Howard made me keep my hair so short that you couldn't move it with your finger. I had to have a military cut. And here it is. You can imagine it's 1968. And I'm in high school. And I looked like the narc. In fact, that's what people called me. Because they thought certainly this short-haired dude from Southern California must be a narc that was put in here to tell on us. Howard also disagreed with everything I said. I could tell him that this slide was blue, and he'd say, no, it's green, or it's yellow, or it's brown. He disagreed with me on everything. We debated every single thing. And he never encouraged me to do anything. I wanted to go to college, and he was like, no, Blaine, you don't need to go to college. You can just be an iron worker like me. Get a trade. You know, that's when you know that you got it going on, when you got a trade. Well, I did get a job in Dr. Pepper Bottling Company as a bottler. And I said, hey, Howard, I got a trade. And he's like, Blaine, that's not a trade. That's a job. Howard, in my opinion, was a bigot. He was prejudiced. He didn't like anybody other than white people. And that's when I heard that every day. And I even tried it on some to see how it felt. And I have to say, it didn't feel so good to me. Howard, in my opinion, didn't like life. He was very negative and made my life very difficult. And yet, I can look back at him today and realize that he was probably the best teacher I've ever had, because he challenged everything that I believe in. And through his teachings, I was able to embrace the things that he reflected in me, the truth. You know, I could know that the opposite is true for me. So how do we embrace our unexpected teachers? So I've got 4 practices that you can use to embrace the unexpected teachers in your life. The first one is to remember that everyone is your mirror. Isn't that great? How about that? Everybody reflects something about you. We see the reason we see it in people because it's in ourselves. So the things that excite us about other people are the things that we enjoy and love about ourselves. Kind of. It's like we see other people and we see the beauty in them because we possess it in ourselves. And that's the reason that we see it in them. You know, I think it's interesting sometimes when we're with somebody and they don't do anything for us, we don't feel any energy, it's because we don't have anything to heal around that. But what happens when you look in the mirror and you see a wild animal, or you look at somebody else and they're reflecting a part of you that you don't like? It's also a part of you. And this isn't a bad thing, by the way. This is just letting us know that we have some spiritual growth opportunities. Probably my favorite awareness of spiritual growth is when I find things comical. And here are Harpo Marx and Lucille Ball, two of my favorite people, in a Marx Brothers movie, and they're standing in a doorway, and anybody remember this scene? And they're imitating each other because they're thinking that they're looking into a mirror and finding that they are imitating everybody and each other and what they're doing. And when we can laugh about mistakes that we make, when we can laugh about the things that happen in our lives, we are able to transition into a place of accepting and spiritual understanding faster. And so you might notice that when you're laughing about something that you did by mistake, it's like, well, you're right on the edge of transforming that. Maybe you have transformed that. So in the second practice is to recognize when one of our buttons is pushed. Got any buttons? I think every one of us has buttons, and it says, push me. And we wear these buttons wherever we are. And it's kind of a cool thing, really, because whenever our buttons get pushed, it's an opportunity for spiritual healing. Isn't that great? Let's hear a yay! Because the reason that our buttons get pushed is because we have buttons. And it's not a bad thing unless you're like this guy. And this one says, maybe if your buttons weren't so big, Mel, people wouldn't be so inclined to push them. So, I think we show up in this lifetime and we develop buttons to be pushed so that we can move forward in our spiritual evolution. Of course, the key is to be able to find ways that when our buttons are pushed, that we react lovingly. And instead of letting our buttons be pushed and then to fly off and try and come back with a whole bunch of energy to resist that which has been triggered in us. Probably one of the most powerful spiritual teachings, I think, is to be able to be at peace, regardless of what's happening. Even to be in the midst of, oh, my button's been pushed. Isn't that interesting? And I know sometimes I can turn as red as that button. And I know when I feel the blood going to my head, it's often a signal to me that my button has been pushed. And those of you who know me have probably seen that a few times. And when you see it, pray with me, because I'm trying to remember this teaching and be present in the moment to the fact that my button's been pushed, and it's okay. In fact, it's a fabulous thing that it's happening, because it means that spiritual growth is present. To relate is to react. To react is to understand oneself. And to understand oneself is to become enlightened. Because our buttons are really there, our reactions are there so that we can discover who we are. Because if we look at, wow, isn't that interesting? My button was pushed. So what is it that I can know about myself when this button is pushed? What is the limited idea that I have, or the fear that I have, or the misunderstanding, or the limited belief that I have that's causing this reaction? Howard pushed my buttons and gave me the opportunity to heal. Howard helped me realize that I had hidden prejudice feelings about other people. And I saw them in him. And that's why I didn't like them in him, because they reflected a part of me that I didn't like. Howard reflected to me that I had an inner critic, because he criticized me all the time. And he was echoing or giving volume to those voices that I heard in my head. Howard reflected to me that I was unhappy and that I didn't like myself. I didn't see in him a man who liked himself. And it made me uncomfortable to feel that in him, because it was also true in me. Howard reflected to me that I wasn't worthy and that I wasn't loved, because I believe he felt that about himself. And seeing that in him reminded me that I didn't feel loved. Didn't feel worthy. These things that Howard brought to my attention are the major healing areas in my life. Howard was an angel to me. Howard helped me to realize these things so that I could spend the next 30 years working on these things. So the third practice is to embrace your unexpected teachers. So often we think that we have to push these people away. That when they show up to us, that I did this with Howard. I went for years without seeing him because I didn't feel comfortable in his presence. And this is what often we do, don't we? When somebody reflects something that we don't like or feel uncomfortable about, we push them away. It's like, get out of my life. I don't want you. You don't make me feel good. When somebody gets angry with us, our typical reaction is to get angry back. And we're angry because something's gotten triggered in us that wants to heal. And instead of getting angry with the mirror, if we could just go, wow, thank you. Thank you for sharing that with me. And what a tough job it is for somebody to be the mirror. It takes great strength to be a mirror. And of course, the mirror has the opportunity to heal as well. What you are feeling in the presence of these teachers is really about what's missing in your capacity to relate to life from a place of wholeness and self-worth. So again, this is an opportunity to heal. It's an opportunity to find wholeness, to find self-worth. Because when we're hurting, we're not experiencing that. We're not expressing that. We're not knowing that that is the truth. When you shine your light on the dark places and give them a loving home, you'll be loving and accept yourself as you are. The gifts that you experience in these unexpected teachers will help you to empower you to be the best that you can be. All of our unexpected teachers are angels. They're angels who come to give us a gift, to remind us of the truth of who we are, to remind us of the self-worth and the possibilities that are there for us. They're there in a way to push our buttons to say, wake up! Hello! You have so much to be. You have so much love to be, so much power, so much joy. It's almost like they see us that way in some way. They behold that in us. And we get to open our hearts. The best thing we can do when we are around these teachers is to be the presence of love, to be at peace, to be kind, I think is probably the best thing that we can do. To be kind. Not to push them away, not to get angry, not angry at yourself or angry at them, but to embrace kindness. You know, if we get angry at the teachers and we push them away, we really put up walls, don't we? We start to build a wall of bricks around us. And once we start building that wall of bricks, we'll spend our whole lifetime trying to build that fortress of bricks around ourselves. Sometime later, Howard decided to move from Northern California to Oklahoma because he had relatives in Oklahoma. And so he invited me to come have a cup of coffee with him. It was literally the day that he was leaving, and I hadn't seen him for a couple years. And I literally pulled up, and he had the U-Haul van out in front of his house. And I went in, and we sat down and had a cup of coffee. And I said I was sorry. I said I was sorry for all the mean things I said. And for all the mean things that I did. And that I know that he wanted the best for me. Always. And he said, you know, Blaine, I've always loved you. I admit I haven't always done the right thing. And I'm sorry for that. And he said, before I go, I want to be friends with you. So we agreed, we shook hands, then we hugged. And everything changed. Everything changed for me and for him in that moment, because we were able, for the first time, to really see who we were, to embrace each other, to love each other. And he moved to Oklahoma, and we kept in touch.
and talk to each other once in a while on the phone. And then a few years later, he died. And I was so relieved and felt so peaceful because I had taken the time to be with him, to see him as the teacher that he is. Even now, treat yourself and your unexpected angels with kindness. That's what we're here to share and to be the presence of love, even in what appears to be the face of an adversary, because that adversary is really an angel who's here to offer you a gift, and that gift is a life filled with joy and peace and truth, empowerment, to be the best that you can be, to be the presence of God, to be the light of the world. Once you begin to treat your unexpected teachers with kindness, you will see that they are here to help you, and they will stop being such difficult teachers. Not only them, but the teachers that show up after them, because you will have exercised a truth and practiced this technique so that you could stand for yourself and be the light of the world. Divine revelations awaken me to greater understandings. Let's pray together, shall we? I invite you to close your eyes. And take a deep breath. Breathing into the wholeness that you are. Into the power that you are. Into the love and the light that is shining in and through and as you. Shining from the very center of your beingness. And I invite you to reflect on an unexpected teacher in your life. Maybe a friend or relative. Father, mother. And to imagine that they are sharing with you the truth of who you are, reminding you that you are powerful, that you are strong, that you are loving and capable. And in the same way, imagine receiving this truth. Imagine embracing the light that you are, the joy that you are. And let's take a moment in the silence, and I invite you to embrace this dear one. and to hold this embrace for a few moments in the silence. Breathing in and breathing out. Beholding this dear one as an angel of light that is here to show you the truth of who you are. And as you breathe, allow your awareness to begin to return to this moment. Giving thanks. For all the teachers in your life. And so it is.
Where I live, there are